Hey everyone, it's Twitch65 again, and today is the start of my vlog series on Warlord Games' miniature game, Bold Action. I know, I'm like 8 to 10 years behind on discovering this game, but I never thought historicals would be in my wheelhouse, which is really kind of funny, as I am kind of a World War II history buff, and building scale models and model dioramas in that genre is kind of my jam. But when it comes to gaming, it's always been comics, grimdark, or fantasy. Anyway, I've also been looking for something I could play solo style game. So when I saw a couple reviews of A Gentleman's War and how the forces were fairly even, but still had their own unique flair, I decided to jump in. I'm not going to bore you with how I build up the models, but I did start with 2 soldiers. One British and one German, and the first big decision was basing. I know a lot of folks go the old GW route of using sand for deserts. Guilty as charged, here's my old Imperial Guardsman. But this time around, I used a chemical reaction between baking soda and cyanoacrylate glue to get some superfine particles attached to the base. I like the look of it for scale sand. Priming for the 8th Army guy was achieved using Rust-Oleum's flat tan camouflage paint. I started with the skin. This is an old habit, working from the inside out. What I did was lay down an all-over medium skin tone to bring the primer back to neutral, and then top coat with a tan flesh color from Army Painter. What I plan on using for all the kits is the following: desert yellow for the uniform, a 50-50 mix of desert yellow and pale sand for the helmet and the bedroll, camo black brown for the boots, khaki for his gaiters, backpack, webbing, belt, and ammo packs, English uniform for the socks, and the rifle wood was chocolate brown with all the gunmetal getting a base coat of gunmetal. A pretty simple set of colors that I can move around for variation within the Army. For these painting mules, I decided to glue them directly to the base and then add the basing. I think going forward, the process will be to add some plastic card under where the model's feet will be attached to the base before adding the basing material. This will give me more of a soldier on top of the sand, not pushing down into the base. Each Army's base will get the same scheme, starting with a base coat of Vallejo's brown sand and a wash of Army Painter's dark tone. That will then be followed up with a light dry brush of Vallejo's Iraqi sand. Our German DAK soldier started off with a primer coat of Army Green, which is a very light, flat green color from the Rust-Oleum camouflage paint range. Again, I started with the skin, but it's really just face and hands, and this time I used Army Painter's Barbarian skin for the top coat, just to give them a slightly lighter skin tone color than the British. The German uniforms vary throughout the desert campaign, so variation is likely and expected. What I chose for this test model was a kind of a mid-campaign color. To represent this, I mixed Russian uniform and green ochre in a 50-50 mix to get that sun-faded olive green color. His helmet and gas mask container are just plain old straight-up ochre green. Webbing was leather brown. Boots and water bottle I did in US field drab, while his gaiters and bread bag were a 50-50 mix of green ochre and Iraqi sand. The rifle wood was mahogany brown, with its gun bits gunmetal. The webbing, belt, and ammo pouches were all leather brown. The shovel handle was painted in buff, and the cover was in green ochre. Finally, the knife was sheathed all in black. After these base coats were good and dry, I came back with the Army Painter flesh tone for all the exposed skin, while everything else got a wash of strong tone, which is a really nice brown-black kind of wash. All that washing helped make the details pop and helped me decide not to go overboard on faces with eyes and tonal shading. They are just gaming models after all. Lastly, a light dry brush on both the figures using pale sand to kind of get an edge highlight and to tie the figures to the base. And then to tie the forces to their activation dice, the 8th Army rims were painted in khaki, while the DAK was painted in a neutral gray. And there you have it, my first 2 models for bolt action. I hope you enjoyed this little painting demo, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing